About the one word use up top. Okay, so let's go on down to the perks and consequences section, the third section. And there, well, I'm going to actually scroll this back up so you can see the to the top. So this is an example of a character with some suggestions for perks and consequences. They're not written in yet, thus the question marks. Normally your perks and consequences would have a number next to them as well. But they're not D, they're R's. 1 rank, 2 rank, 3 rank, 4 rank. They may, in gameplay, equate to a die. That's up to me, whether or not it's going to matter or not. And I'll give you examples of when it would or when it wouldn't. What's important is that the total number, and I'm going to say disadvantages first. So if there are what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 disadvantages listed on this character sheet. The maximum you can have at startup is 10. In which case they would all be 1 rank each because you have 10 rank points to spend on them. These are going to give you points that you can use to buy advantages. So if you've ever played a White Wolf game like Vampire the Masquerade or anything, they had a similar concept of you can decide your vampire can walk out in the daylight, but because of that, they're going to have disadvantages that equate to that, and there's a number system. You rank them however intense you want them to be. Again, there's a lot of examples of disadvantages here. I doubt any one character at creation would have all these. They might have 2 or 3. And it's based on your story. You know, your story about where they came from and why they decided adventuring to begin with. You know, maybe they picked up a phobia because their parents were killed by something in particular, or they have a compulsion because of something. You decide, and you decide how severe it is. No more than 4 points in any one, same as was up above in the attributes and skills. No more than 4 points can be assigned to an advantage or a disadvantage. And again, they have to balance. If you've got 4 points in disadvantages, you'll have to have 4 points spent in advantages. Now, after gameplay begins, advantages and disadvantages can be imbalanced. You may meet up with a very wealthy individual who owes you a favor, and you're going to build an advantage that I will have you all add to your sheet because of that encounter, but it will no longer have to be balanced. Same can be the other side. You may have a really bad encounter with a dragon, and now you have this fear of whatever, the compulsions can develop that way as well.
So is there a limit then? Does that mean you could have, if you want 20 advantages, then you just need to have 20 disadvantages to balance that?
He said 10.
10, yeah. 10 is the limit.
10.
Yeah.
I missed that. Sorry. Okay, good.
It's okay. That's why we're revisiting it. So, yeah, 10, and no more than 4 points in any one. You got it. Yes, you did. We don't know what Raul's got. He's just moving around in the darkness. Turn some lights on, bro.
It looks like you're like somewhere like, man, what's going on over there?
He's like, I had to clean up. It's like, no, you don't. Point to a corner like I did.
Who cares?
Like where I have my projector and everything.
If I shift 2 feet to the left or right, it's all trashed. But
you should like get some like spooky like UV lights and like some Halloween decorations and stuff. Right?
It's not a bad idea. We need
to.
I'm just happy to be in my recliner. Is all I care. I'm comfortable. So no, maximum of 10. So again, one of the things that's going to separate advantages and disadvantages from your skills and attributes is these are the kind of things that you're not going to be able to typically. What is he doing?
He's taking our advice. He's centering himself in the camera. Give him a break, Paul.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know what he's up to. Like, what the hell is he doing now? It doesn't look any different to me. Oh, there's good. Yeah. Too funny. You'll notice.
I like the dark.
Yeah, you like the dark. Quit it. So if you'll notice that these are all 2-word combinations, not 1-word combinations. So they're slightly more defined. They can't be 1 word. They can't be 3. They have to be 2 words. So it's a way of again keeping you from getting too crazy or too generalized with.
So
these.
I can't just say awesome.
No, or immortal. Yeah, but moderately immortal. Okay,
Invincible.
Yeah. Moderately invincible would be an acceptable advantage. You're going to put
Rolls maximum.
It typically should be something not so mechanical in nature, and metagamed, a little bit more like you see here. Natural survivalist, light sleeper. They're a little bit more rolls 20s always. Oh, wait, that's 3 words. Crits always. So anyway, but you're going to have to assign a rank to it anyway, and the maximum rank you can assign to it's 4 at character generation per individual item. So it's still going to be. I'll of course determine when that mortality or immortality patterns, and you can really shoot yourself in the foot because you're going to give the DM a lot to play with when you do that kind of crazy stuff. So, but there again, use what you like, and this is where you get a lot of creative options to kind of play around with what you want. Now, again, when I show you some other character sheets, you'll see examples of the disadvantages are usually where you find the restrictions placed on spellcasters. Like a wizard, typically, would have a disadvantage that says requires memorization. Well, for spellbook. Requires implement. So you have to have an implement. Requires semantics or verbal or again you can choose the 2 words you want, but the ones I usually use are requires semantics. They have to verbalize their spellcasting. Requires gestures. So all those things can be, any one of those can be taken away. You tie the wizard's hands behind their back, you gag them in the mouth. It's going to drastically affect their ability to cast their spells. It's not just to make it impossible, but they're going to start taking negatives because of that restriction. But that's how you make it realistic for certain types of character classes to exist, even though classes, again, are just a word you use to describe what you think of your spellcaster as being. If you were to create a witch or a warlock, they might require rituals as opposed to being able to just cast things. That may be their primary methodology. The cleric will require a symbol. They definitely require semantics or prayer. They require an observance of their religious covenant. So but they might not require gestures. They don't have to gesture. They just pray verbally. So up to you how you want to implement that. The neutral definition section, when you read the books and stuff, it talks about a section here called special abilities. And it doesn't make any sense to me because it says they're not advantages, they're not disadvantages, they're special abilities. Well, that to me is extra normal powers. We're repeating ourselves. So I've done away with that. Instead, neutral definitions for me, the neutral section is anything that is both an advantage and a disadvantage, or it's neither. So one of the things that is often found there, obviously movement is standard, it's just a place to record it, but it's also things like low light vision. Well, you think, well, low light vision is an advantage. Not if it's bright and your eyes are accustomed to being in the dark, so vision like that will fall here. Anything else you can think of that's given to you racially that is not really an advantage or disadvantage, you would list there. So not many things that I see happening in that category, but if you do, you'd put them there. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So the difficulty range is just here for reference, so you know I will never tell you what the target number is that you're trying to hit when you're trying to do something. Matter of fact, I will usually ask you after you roll, I want to run and jump and wall run and grab the chandelier. I'm thinking Fernando, and then jump on the guy. So I said, well, that's going to be, based on the circumstances, that's going to be relatively difficult, or it could be moderately difficult, or I'll usually give you a generalization so you kind of got an idea what you need to roll, but I'll never tell you exactly. And there's always...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Will you give us, points for it being really cool?
Of course, yeah. Absolutely. Matter of fact, that's how you gain experience in this game. So you gain experience points on the fly as you go, and you might get anywhere from 3 to 7 just by being cool. And then everybody usually gets some at the end of if you've accomplished a milestone or an encounter or something, like, okay, everybody gets a character point for successfully surviving that one. But in the meantime, people are picking up individual character points along the way. And you can use them too.
You give those out to us as it goes along?
As it goes along.
You get 3 experience points, and we jot those down, and that's how that's added. So it's not like at the end of the game we all get an even distribution.
Yeah, no, this one, I mean, there is an even distribution usually at the end of certain, like I said, certain milestones. Like if we, in a typical thing when we used to play 4 hours, you might have a battle and a social encounter and a trap in that one night. Maybe 2 of you'd probably get a character point each for successfully completing each of those sections. So, and that's for everybody. So I say, all right, everybody gets a character point for finishing that. But during the game, when really cool things are happening, they're either really clever or and they can make good video, because that's what this is all about. Then yeah, I'm going to throw character points out like mad for those. And you will get to either use them during the game to improve die rolls, or you get to use them to improve your character. So that's where do I take the immediate benefit or do I save them and use them later to improve, level them up? So everybody will not necessarily level
So if I
equally.
play an always impulsive or disadvantaged character, and so I always use those to get the immediate advantage, does that mean at the end of the game I get a
Unfortunately, you are failing to separate player from character. The character's the one impulsive, not Matt. Now, maybe they both are, but the character has to be impulsive in the story, not say, "Hey, Tron, roll dice," because he's like talking to his user. It doesn't work that way, but close. You're getting there. It's starting to sink in. But yeah, if the character's always impulsive and it's to the point of being funny and not totally railroading to the party wants to kill you, then yeah, it might be good. So that's what these wild die are. So we talked about rolling a pool of d6s. So let's say this guy, he's good with bows. He's got 1d in bows, so he is a total of 5d every time he shoots an arrow. That's a pretty darn good number. I mean, average will be what, 3.5 times 5? Yeah, so he's going to be able to hit the difficult level on average, assuming there are no modifiers. So if the range is a modifier, cover is a modifier, so I may behind the scenes be adding +5. There may be other factors involved, concealment due to smoke or shadow, all of which could make this, but I'll usually tell you, it's like, hey, this is going to be a very difficult shot. Fine. You roll your dice. Let's say you don't roll as well. You roll a lot of 2s and 3s. Then you can, are you happy with that roll? And if not, you can spend a character point. You're basically spending your experience points for a wild die. Now, let me back up. When you roll the pool of 5 dice, one of them is always wild. So if we were playing around the table, we'd have a pool of like blue dice and a smaller pool of red dice, and everybody if you were rolling 5 dice, you grab 4 blue and 1 red. So we know which one is wild, and we'd roll it. If that wild die comes up 6, the maximum it can be, you get another wild die. You grab it out of the pool and roll it too, and you keep. So it's called exploding die. We did this in Dragon Age when we played in MegaCon. They had exploding die.
That was cool. Yeah, I like that.
So it's exploding. The mechanical term, technical term is exploding die. D6 has had it forever and called it wild die. Now, however, the converse, if you roll a 1 on the wild die, you also lose your highest die out of the pool and you're done. So you can fail that way. But if ever you're not happy with your roll, I'll say, hey, are you happy or not? You can spend a character point, no more than 2 at any one attempt, and get an extra exploding die to roll into that and try to improve the results. But you're burning up your experience points to do it. Fair enough? That's kind of what this little box over here is trying to halfway explain. And then, fate points. Rare. In a group this size, we probably would only give out 1 per section. I'll probably give it out. The next session, I'd let you guys vote on who to give it to. If there were 4 of us, it's usually, half, 1 for every 2 players. So if there were 4 of us playing, if we have a guest involved for a few weeks and they're playing with us or whatever, at the end of those sessions, I might give 1 out and let you guys vote on the second one. But a fate point just changes the fate of the game. You either double the number of your dice pool. That's huge. But character points you get to say, after you roll, you get to tell me if you want to spend a character point. Fate dice you have to decide before you roll. Keep that in mind. So he's like, I really want to do this can I do this really awesome and tell me the story what you want to be? Yeah, you might want to spend a fate point to get the extra dice. Or if you need to kind of slightly change the storyline, hey, can we change that location or can we adjust that? Because it's all about the story. Sometimes that'll cost a fate point. Or you can basically buy yourself away from death with a fate point, because when I get into wound levels in a second, the worst wound you take is death. Well, if you can basically back that up 1, you're not dead, you're just bleeding out. So, or if you're bleeding out, you can back it up to unconscious but not bleeding out. That kind of thing. Or you can buy a clue, I guess, if you're just totally freaking lost. It's like, Paul, throw us a bone. Well, it's going to cost you a fate point. Who wants to spend it? So, fair enough?
Yep.
Okay. The movement is pretty straightforward. I think it says there. This character could move. The base rate for any character is 15 feet. It's like a base 6 it was in D&D 4th edition, I think. You'll find the cleric in a little bit. I think that's down to 10. She loses 5 feet because of her chainmail armor. Heavy armors will reduce movement. You notice the difference between a free action and action. Okay, it's time to talk about actions. You can, during your